break for a second there. Today we're going to be in Matthew 23, starting at verse 1. This is in the midst of what is considered Jesus' teaching phase. He is teaching the people, he's teaching at the religious courts, he's teaching theology. Just flat out theology. It's not going, okay, this is what you should do, because this is, if you are my disciples, if you believe, if you claim to follow Jehovah, follow God, this is what you should be doing. He's teaching theology. We oftentimes think of theology as boring. And if you look at it as just simple rules, it can be. But it's much more alive than that. It's much more about how we interact with the world and with our God. The human interaction is so interesting and so complicated. There's whole branches of studies. Sociology, studying interactions amongst groups of people. Psychology is understanding the interactions of the person with themselves. You know, those are just two of them. There's a whole bunch of them. To think of theology, it's the understanding of us to our reaction and to God. And usually there's two main reactions that we have when we're first saved, and then it spreads to thousands of different behaviors. The first one is when we're first exposed to God, we either go, and we're scared. Because we realize we have been a sinner and we are under judgment. And then the second part, or the second reaction, is relief. Is that we were a sinner and we are under forgiveness. And so that's, kind of the way it normally works when someone comes to salvation. But it moves to many other things. Jesus talking in 23 is talking about theology. Now, it won't seem like that at first when we look at it. But he is talking to the Pharisees. And we like to make fun of the Pharisees, but we have to remember who they are. The Pharisees were the ones who were relied upon, who were trusted, who were teachers of the law. They knew the Torah back and forward. To be considered a scribe, you had to have the Torah, the prophets, all of that stuff memorized word for word. And I don't mean sort of. One of the final tests they had to do as a scribe was to write out exactly, not a letter, not a symbol, anything out of order, incorrect. I felt horribly for two reasons. One, my memory's just not good enough for it. And two, my handwriting's just not good enough for it. If y'all have never seen my handwriting, sometimes y'all see me look at my notes and I kind of go, I'm trying to figure out what I wrote. That's how bad my handwriting is. Now, it's not as bad as my dad's. My dad's look like the little swirls. After a while, you can read it. But Nicole's great at it. I look at it and I can sit there and I have to go, that one's got 4 letters. That one's got 2 letters. Oh, that's what he said. And so my handwriting's pretty bad, but it's, we always have to have a measure of where it is. Mine's legible, at least by most people. And so the scribes and the Pharisees, they were experts of the law, the Torah, the prophets. They were experts of the rabbinic tradition, what the rabbis had said. This is what we believe God has said. They knew it front to back. Because of this, they were lifted up as honored. Look at these religious leaders. Look at what they're doing. Look how smart they are. Look, they are God's representatives to help us understand the law. And they were honored for them. And this part is something we often leave out. They were honored leaders. Now, a lot of people like to compare the Pharisees with ministers. That's not the same case. These were people who maybe had jobs doing other things. They were ones who were seen as wise. They were knowledgeable. They would be more like our elders in our modern day church understanding. Does that make sense? The priests were the clergy. The Pharisees and the scribes were more like the elders of the church and the deacons and all that. So it doesn't quite work that way. It's a different organization. But they were seen as wise. They were seen as knowledgeable. They were seen as honorable. And Jesus absolutely destroys them in chapter 23. He doesn't pull any punches. He doesn't talk nicely to them. He is almost not tactful by what he says to them. And I'm going to read through the whole chapter. I know it's a lot of material. But there are 12 points I'm going to sum up. So I'm going to read through it, then I'm going to read these 12 points. I want us to think about it. I'm going to read out of the New International Version, or the New Living Translation, just because it's easier for me to read this amount of material that fast. In chapter 23, verse 1 of Matthew, it says, "Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, 'The teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the Scriptures. So practice and obey whatever they say to you, but don't follow their example. For they don't practice what they teach. They crush you with impossible religious demands and never lift a finger to help ease the burden. Everything they do is for show. On their arms they wear extra wide prayer boxes with scripture verses inside, and they wear extra long tassels on their robes. And how they love to sit at the head table of banquets and in the most prominent seats in the synagogue. They enjoy the attention they get on the streets, and they enjoy being called rabbi. Don't ever let anyone call you rabbi, for you have only one teacher, and all of you are on the same level as brothers and sisters. And don't address anyone here on earth as Father, for only God in heaven is your spiritual Father. And don't let anyone call you Master, for there is only one Master, the Messiah. The greatest among you must be a servant, but those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. How terrible it will be for you teachers of religious law and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you won't let others enter the kingdom of heaven, and you won't go in yourselves. Yes, how terrible it will be for you teachers of religious law and you Pharisees, for you cross land and sea to make one convert, and then you turn him into twice the son of hell as you yourselves are. Blind guides, how terrible it will be for you. For you say that it means nothing to swear by God's temple. You can break that up. But then you say that it is binding to swear by the gold in the temple. Blind fools, which is greater, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? And you say that to take an oath by the altar can be broken, but to swear by the gifts on the altar is binding. How blind, for which is greater, the gift on the altar or the altar that makes the gift sacred? When you swear by the altar, you are swearing by it and by everything on it. And when you swear by the temple, you are swearing by it and by God who lives in it. And when you swear by heaven, you are swearing by the throne of God and by God who sits on the throne. How terrible it will be for you teachers of religious law and you Pharisees, hypocrites. For you are careful to tithe even the tiniest part of your income, but you ignore the important things of the law, justice, mercy, faith. You should tithe, yes, but you should not leave undone the more important things. Blind guides. You strain your water so you won't accidentally swallow a gnat, then you swallow a camel. How terrible it will be for you teachers of religious law and you Pharisees, hypocrites. You are so careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisees. First wash the inside of the cup, and then the outside will become clean too. How terrible it will be for you teachers of religious law and you Pharisees, hypocrites. You are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. You try to look upright, like upright people outwardly, but inside your hearts are filled with hypocrisy and lawlessness. How terrible it will be for you teachers of religious law and you Pharisees, hypocrites. For you build tombs for the prophets your ancestors killed and decorate the graves of the godly people your ancestors destroyed. Then you say we never would have joined them in killing the prophets. In saying that, you are accusing yourselves of being the descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Go ahead, finish what they started, snakes, sons of vipers. How will you escape the judgment of hell? I will send you prophets and wise men and teachers of religious law. You will kill some by crucifixion, and whip others in your synagogues, chasing them from city to city. As a result, you will become guilty of murdering all the godly people, from righteous Abel to Zechariah, son of Baruchah, whom you murdered in the temple between the altar and the sanctuary. I assure you, all the accumulated judgment of the centuries will break upon the heads of this very generation. "O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, the city that kills the prophets and stones God's messengers. How often I have wanted to gather your children together as a hen protects her chicks beneath her wings, but you wouldn't let me. And now look, your house is left to you, empty and desolate. For I tell you this, you will never see me again until you say, Blessed the one who comes in the name of the Lord." It's a lot of material. And it's a lot of chastisement. Many times we pull pieces out of that. I'm just as guilty of taking a set of verses and going, yeah, we need to look at this. But there is a whole thought process there of crimes that the Pharisees, these religious leaders, these honorable men, that Christ threw at their feet and said, look at what you're doing. I made lists, summed it up, 12. First one was make others serve, but excuse yourselves. It's the whole thing of you're willing to put all these laws on everyone else, but you don't follow. You make others serve, but you excuse yourself. Second one is deeds for men's attention. They dress up nice. They wear certain things, the large prayer boxes on their shoulders. They walk through the market, and there's a servant in front of them ringing a bell. Out of the way, there's a Pharisee coming. Actually did this. They love places of honor. This is an interesting one because we really don't have this, but anytime they do any big banquet in our culture, you'll see a head table. It's usually elevated. That's not new. They did that here too. And the best food got served there before everything else. The fourth one is they strive for titles, not equality. Equality is brother and sister. Title is, oh, I am this and this and this. I am the apostle this. I'm not going to pick on any specific names. There's one that it bothers me. They call themselves, I am an apostle son of. That's a title that you're striving for. Now, if you have earned a doctorate, I'll call you doctor. If you have earned the title of RN, I will call you RN. But if you just give yourself a title, that's a problem. Technically, as me being an ordained minister, I am Reverend Mitchell. Really don't like people calling me that because I look for my dad. It's a little nicer now because he's technically Dr. Mitchell. So if they say Dr. Mitchell, I know who they're looking for. But they strive for a title, not equality. The fifth one I wrote, block the path to salvation. Don't stop thinking about it. They are so headstrong in their path that this is what is right. We must dress this way. We must act this way. We must do this, that they head off that way. People follow them and heaven's there. Stop and think about that. And realize the modern church is doing that sometimes. The sixth one I wrote, take from those we're supposed to help. He just mentions real quick that they take from the widows, from the needy, from the poor. And they say, I'll say a prayer for you. Prosperity gospel jumps out at me for this one. When a prosperity minister is making millions of dollars and an average income for the congregation is less than $30,000, I have a problem. Now, I'm not saying pastors are supposed to be poor. I'm not saying they're not allowed to be rich. But I'm saying they should be on the same path as their congregation. It's just the way I see it. The seventh one is they strive to convert, but wrongly. They convert someone and then lead them down the wrong path. A lot of churches are guilty of this. They'll bring people into the church and the numbers will grow, but there's no discipleship. And so the people will come in and they learn all sorts of heresy. All sorts of stuff. One of them that just jumps out at me is the fact that there are some churches that say you have to speak in tongues to show that you're saved. I don't agree with that. There's no evidence that Paul ever spoke in tongues to my understanding. Would they argue about that? Yeah. They go, oh, well, he did. He says, I'm glad I didn't. that. And they were doing a lot of that. The Pharisees were doing a lot of that. And the Pharisees, being the religious leaders, they would say, okay, well, you can swear here and you can break that one, but if you swear this way, you can't break that one. And all the ones they were focusing on were the materialistic stuff. You swear on the gold, you swear on the altar. Well, no. Or the gifts of the altar. No, you need to, if you're going to swear by something holy, you're supposed to swear on God. I swear to God, like we do with the Bible. I swear on the Bible that I will tell the truth. Same basic idea. We're not actually swearing on the Bible. We're swearing on God's honor that we will tell the truth. And so wrong oaths, being materialistic. The ninth one was they were focused on the tithe money, but ignored righteousness. They were focused on, are you tithing on the herbs? Are you tithing on all this income that's coming in? But they ignored being righteous. They ignored faith, love, and, I forget the thrill. Faith, love, and righteousness. I think I'd have to double check. I didn't write down my verses on these. But they didn't focus on righteousness. This idea of they were worried about, okay, are you bringing the money into the church? And then they didn't care whether the people were being righteous or if they themselves were being righteous. 10th one I wrote down says they worried about tradition and not the heart of man. Right now, today is Sunday. All around the world, churches are meeting at different times, at different situations. And if you took a snapshot of a church every hour, you know what? For a while, there'd be a bunch of people in suits, jeans and button-ups. And then there'd be people in shorts and button-ups. And then people in swim trunks on the beach having church. People in saris, women in saris, heads all bound up. Men in full-length robes. All Christian. All different traditions. Will you say they're not a Christian because of their dress? Some people will. Some people will say because they look different, because they don't worship the same way I do, because they sing a more contemporary or less contemporary, that's not that kind of church. We've got to quit worrying about tradition and more about the heart of man. I don't have a problem with a pastor who stands up, neon red hair, shorts, and a t-shirt. I don't care. What I care about is what theology is he bringing. If he's bringing the right theology, okay, maybe not my cup of tea. But he's getting the theology. He's getting God's Word into the world, and it is not my place to stand in His way. Nor is it any of ours. Now, if someone comes in and they're in a three-piece suit, and they look sharp, and they look nice, and they look like a businessman of America, and they say something that is heresy, I will stand in his way, and I will sit down with them and go, I do not believe you're right, and let me show you biblically why. And I've done that. It makes them very angry, because I don't look like someone who knows exactly what I'm talking about sometimes. But they worry about tradition, not the heart of man. The 11th thing I wrote down was they tried to appear righteous without making the inner man righteous. Let me explain that one really well. Can you imagine sitting there and you see a beautiful loaf of bread? And it's that golden brown, it's kind of crusty, it's still steamy a little. You walk in and you're like, oh, that looks good. You pull it open, and it's dough inside. Are you going to eat it? You're going to put it back in the oven and cook it a little longer, right? All right, now imagine you open it up and there's a snake in there. A bunch of spiders. Guts of an animal. Whatever you want to make it. Something just nasty. This is what he is talking about. These Pharisees appear to try to look righteous. They wear the right clothes. They have the right behaviors in public. They are seen as upright people in the community, but at home, they're horrible people. We see this in the news when it's finally found out. We see this in the gossip column when it's finally found out. Pastor caught with tons of stuff on his computer that puts him in jail for life. Kids here, keeping us safe. Pianist and pastor leave because of affair. You know, this kind of stuff. Pastor leaves church because of an addiction. Pastor destroys church because of gossip. I started church almost get destroyed because a deacon gossiped. This kind of inner destruction was being covered up. The Pharisees were like, yes, we're upright and we're honorable and we're doing all this, and I've got 5 mistresses. I steal from the poor. I lie. I cheat. Whatever. They wouldn't own up to it. They would just, no, we're the righteous ones. That's where the whitewash tomb is. It looked beautiful. So you realize that what was inside was horrible. Death and decay. 12th one I wrote says, they showed outer piety, but it was false. This is the idea they were like, yes, I'm God's servant. Yes, I'm here to serve. I'm here to take care of people. Yes, I'm here to be this kind of person. But they did that so they would get the honor. They did that so they would get the accolades of the people. This is the same idea of someone who is like, yes, I'm an elder and I'm wise and I want to give you wisdom, but they do that so they will manipulate and control someone. Does that make sense? This idea, all these here, all the stuff that Jesus taught, applies to us nowadays because we're still human. We still have people that we would classify as these Pharisees. And as I read through this, and as I read through my list that I did, that is my list. Those 12 points are my list I made from that. You might not agree with all those, that's fine. The words of God are there for you to understand. This is my list. But if no one's name popped up to you, if no conviction popped up for you, then I need to learn from you. Or you need to learn from God. Because either you got it really right, or you got it really wrong. Because as I read through some of these things stuck out, and I was like, oh, I need to work on something. And then some people popped into my head of these are people that I need to help shepherd. I don't just shepherd y'all, by the way. I had a friend this week in Alabama. I had one at work. I had California that sent me questions. I'm not just a pastor here. I'm God's minister to whoever wants to ask me questions. And some of those people are in these categories. And I get to talk to them because I am honest with them, and they know that. The very end of what he says all these crimes, if you will, all these accusations of what you've done wrong. And then he says at the very end, and you will reap the reward, is basically what that ending is. When he says all of this, you will kill people, you will destroy, you will bring it down on your head because you say, oh, we're better than our fathers, and yet you will be the ones that persecute God's people. And they did. They chased the church out of Jerusalem, not because they were like, you can't have a building permit. They were like, you're going to die. And they chased them out. They stoned them. Paul's one of them. Stop and think about how many times Paul got stoned and survived. And then the Judaizers would follow behind it, or the Jews would follow behind him and chase him out. And if they didn't get to stoning him, it's because he ran out. One time they stoned him, he got up and went back in. Man was a little crazy, but hey, I tell people you got to be a little crazy to be a minister. That's just all there is to it. Because you deal with people. This all applies to the modern church. All of it. Because we're still human. We still love, we still hate. We still want honor. We still want to help people to get something out of it. We still want to, we want to worry about these things, and those people, they're not involved in what we're doing. We still, all these things we still do. Because as Solomon said, what? There's nothing new under the sun. Humans still hate, love, they're greedy, they're lustful, they're selfish, they're self-righteous. We are all guilty of sin, as Paul makes very clear. That's why I said, if you didn't feel
A little chastisement, because trust me, it's one of the things about doing the sermon. I sit there and I go through it and I go, okay. And sometimes I'll look at Nicole and I'll go, why? Why this one? If you don't feel that chastisement, there's either you're doing something incredibly well or you're doing something incredibly wrong. Because Paul says we have all sinned. None of us are righteous. So the question we have to ask, when we read through this list, are we truly righteous? According to God's rule. Not according to man's. Because according to man's, most of us are fine. Anybody kill anybody? Take a home away from someone? Kick them to the curb? Lie, cheat, steal, anything? Don't confess to hurting anybody. I have to report it. According to man's law, we're fine, right? Anybody speed this week? Guess what? We're guilty of breaking the law. We're not as good as we like to think. Now stop thinking. A couple of y'all hands up, yep. All teenagers are like, we don't even drive. Right? You are fine there. Did you lie to your parents this week? They all kind of froze. Megan went, I don't think so. You sure? No, that's fair because today's the first day of the week. So, they're all like, oh, we're good then. Yeah, Megan's like, I haven't talked and socialized enough to have lied. Are we righteous according to God's rule though? Because His rule is a lot stricter than man's rule. Tell you how strict? In man's rule, you have not committed adultery until physically. In God's rule, what does He say? When your mind is focused on that, when you have focused your mind upon someone else's wife, you're just as guilty of committing that adultery. Now, that's a much harsher rule. I'll apply that to everything. When you even think, when you focus and you come up with a lie that you're going to tell, have you committed the sin of lying? It's an interesting, and she's like, oh, I don't think so. If God says the intent is there, even if you don't act on it, and that's still sin, then yeah, it is. When we hate one another, we have committed a sin as atrocious as murder. God's rule is a lot more strict. When we even think about gossiping about others, or we think something bad on someone else, it's just as if we walked up to them and said it to their face. God's rule on righteousness is much stricter. So the question is, are we truly righteous according to God's rule, or are we playing at righteousness while holding to sin? And we might excuse it. We might say, that's how I was raised. Well, I have this trauma and that's why I do this. Or I had no other choice. I'm sorry, we're not animals. We have choices. We can get past trauma. It might be hard. And we can all overcome our raising because we all have issues to deal with from that. And it's part of life. That we are flawed, failed creatures who must choose to strive after that righteousness. And the problem that Jesus had with the Pharisees is they knew better than to live the lives they were living. And they didn't do it. Because what does He say at the very beginning? One of the first things, He goes, the teachers of religious law and the Pharisees are the official interpreters of the Scriptures. So practice and obey whatever they say to you, but don't follow their example, for they do not do what they teach. That would be as if you see a state trooper speeding and swerving and he's drunk driving in his cruiser. You're supposed to follow the law, but he's not doing it. And unfortunately, too many Christian people are like that nowadays. We live a life of sin, unrepentant sin. We live a life of hate, anger, gossip, gluttony, adultery. Name a sin, there are Christians that are doing it.
And people called them. After Jesus, people started realizing that they were disobeying the Old Testament law. And they were like, no, we're not. That's one reason they got so mad about Jesus. Because until then, they were the big dogs, they were the teachers, they had the respect. And when Jesus came along and he challenged them time after time after time after time publicly, they started losing that honor, that threshold of, I'm good. And people started challenging them. They started following Jesus instead. And that's when they said, we got to do something about it. When he proved without a doubt that he had the power over life and death by raising Lazarus, the Pharisees went, we're done. He needs to die. And so does Lazarus. And they started a plot from that time forward. We will face challenges for ourselves. We will. We're also going to face challenges when we talk to others. We say, hey, when you said this, it really hurt my feelings. When you did this, you taught me better. And it hurt. Melanie ever caught you on something you taught her to do better? You did something you shouldn't have?
Oh.
And she went, Mom! Why? Because you taught her right. Most of the time. I caught my mom on something, and it's kind of funny. My mom told us, I was trying to remember exactly how she would phrase it. I don't remember. Oh, it was about language. Certain language not to use. When we were somewhere, I don't remember where, and she stubbed her toe or something, and she went, bloop. And I went, Mom! She went, leave me alone. Why? Because she knew what she had done. It was not supposed to happen. But when we do that in our Christian walk, when we go, leave us alone, either we're feeling guilty or we don't care. And the problem is if we're feeling guilty, we need to do something about it. Go to God and say, I'm sorry. Go to God and say, help me be better. Help me strive towards righteousness. And if we don't care, we're heading down the path of destruction. Us as Christians are heading down a path of destruction. You might face tough times in your life. You might face loss. You might not even be saved. If you look at the Bible at condemnation of the Pharisees, of the Gentiles, and you just literally don't feel anything about it, I would challenge either you're not saved or you have become so callous that you might as well not be. I'm not saying you can lose your salvation. I'm just saying you just stop listening to the Holy Spirit. And if you've done either, if you are unsaved or you have just stopped listening to the Holy Spirit, you've got ways you can go. You go to God. You go, look, I need you. And I am sorry. I've made some bad mistakes. If you're His child, guess what? He will go, I love you anyway. Come here. Love on you, hug you, and then set you on the right path. What did He say to the woman who was caught in adultery? He didn't go, well, I'm going to stone you. He said, I won't condemn you. Go and sin no more. He didn't excuse her sin. He told her to stop doing it. God does the same with us. Matthew, that anger you got hold, you got to stop. That jealousy, whatever you gossip, whatever you struggle with, He'll love on you and then tell you to stop it. One of my famous comedic sketches is Bob Newhart. I told you how old it is. He poses as a therapist, and a woman comes in and she's like, okay, I need the cheapest therapy you can do. And he goes, stop it! That's his therapy. Stop it! Every time she starts talking about something that bothers her, stop it! And sometimes it's as simple as that. Stop being hateful. Stop being kind to get something out of it. Stop gossiping about others. Or yourself even. Y'all know you can do that? Tell people about stuff they don't need to know? Stop it. And turn towards the righteousness that is God. Is it easy? No. It's not easy to change. So the question is, are we striving after righteousness? Or are we holding on to sin? Can't serve two masters, as it is said.
choice, no pleasure, one song. If y'all want to talk to me, please come talk to me. It can be now, it can be later, phone call, whatever. More importantly, talk to your God. Or talk to God if He is not yours yet. And maybe you can see that He wants you in His family.